Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Gotennis. Today is our series called Youth Sports Talk, and we are talking with Coach Ben Hestley of Bullshark Sports. He is a certified coach of players, an experienced coach of coaches, and a parent of youth sports athletes himself. Today, we ask the question on Youth Sports Talk: what are they doing? My kid's tennis class doesn't look like tennis this time. So we hear that question a lot, and I know what we're asking, but to the parent that hasn't had a chance to ask that question yet, why would a parent have to ask the question, why does my sports class not look like the expected typical sports class? What are we even talking about here, Ben?
Yeah, I think a lot of times parents sign their kids up for a sport, and let's use tennis as the example. Sign your child up for tennis, you walk on the court, you expect to see tennis being played. And I even see it with the kids because probably they've gone out to buy, and we're talking about beginner kids. They've never played the sport before. Mom and dad want to play tennis. Mom and dad sign them up for tennis, bring them to their first tennis practice. And they've got their rackets. A lot of times a parent may email me or text me and say, hey, well, do I need a racket? I always say no. I always bring extra rackets. I always tell them no, don't worry about it. But sometimes they have a racket, right? So they bring their racket, they're running on the court, and the first thing I tell them to do is put your rackets off to the side. And I get this crazy looking from the kids. They're like, why would I put my racket down? I came to play tennis, and now you're telling me to put my racket down. Because there's a lot of things that have to happen before you actually use that racket. Number one, can you even catch a ball off the bounce? Right? Some kids don't even know what off the bounce means. I've even in the last couple of years had to change my verbiage when I explained to a kid, "Hey, we're going to do a toss and catch game with your partner here, and uh, Billy, you're going to toss the ball, and Susie, you're going to let it bounce and then catch it." They don't know what let it bounce. They have no clue what that means. They've never played the sport before, never been around sports a lot in general. So I know what off the bounce means. Shaun, you've played tennis forever. You know what off the bounce means. So I had to change my verbiage to let the ball touch the ground. I want you to catch the ball after it touches the ground. And that makes more sense for them because not only are they new to tennis, they're new to sport. And so a lot of the things we use all the time, they've never been around it. They've never experienced to it. So that's what I mean by you come in, the parent says, I signed him up for tennis. I want him or her to play tennis. And you're out there for 20 minutes with the racket sitting off the sideline. And that's what we want to get into today is a lot of the athletic skills, the physical competencies that kids need to have before they're actually able to use that racket.
And I love what you said. They're not only new to tennis, insert other sport, baseball, basketball, whatever. They're new to sport. So often we have to have this conversation with first time sports parents where the kids come in and you try to get them to play tennis or hit a ball with a bat. It's not happening. And the kid's going to get frustrated and they're going to go home and say, I don't want to play anymore. So we as coaches understand this and say, hey, you know what? Your kid needs to be able to throw a ball and catch a ball. It's pretty straightforward. Clearly, you haven't spent any time as a parent doing that because we can tell when the kids show up that they are, oh, yeah, I play catch with dad or mom all the time. That kid's easy, but most kids aren't that way. So, is there a way you have to explain this to the parents? We have a video, Tennis for Children. We do an onboarding email and we say, hey, parents, watch this video. I do an explainer and I say, sometimes it's not going to look like what you expect. We have off court workouts. These kids are new to sport and they need to go through X, Y, and Z. Can you give us an example of what those first few things look like so a parent doesn't freak out day one?
Yeah, and if the parent asks, I'll just explain to them, hey, in our number one philosophy of Bull Shark Sports when it comes to tennis is nothing more. If you broke tennis has a lot of parts, like most sports, but break it down to its base function. Tennis is playing catch using rackets. We're playing catch. You have the ball, Shaun. You send it to me. I send it back. We're using a racket to do that when we play tennis. If you and I are playing catch, it's the same type of activity. It's just a different element, right? Instead of using my hands, I've got this racket that I'm using to send the ball to you. So parents quickly get into that. I will have kids with their beginner kids, so they're using the red ball nets. They're the portable nets that are positioned sideways to the court. And a lot of parents actually will get that. Like I've never had a problem with a parent starting out. Now I will have a parent that challenges me maybe if their kid is quote too good for that court and needs bigger space. And we've had those conversations. But starting out, they kind of see it, especially if they played soccer. I know a lot of kids, soccer is their first intro to youth sports. It's probably my soccer people are going to hate. I always say when I say this, I'm not saying soccer is easy to be good at, but
Right.
what I am saying is soccer is easy to get started with.
Correct.
It's a
Easiest.
ball on a field. It's a bunch of kids running around chasing a ball, right? You're just chasing the ball and hopefully it goes in the goal. And so early on, that's why you can play soccer at 3 or 4 years old. When tennis, to really play tennis, we're talking 7, 8 for most kids before they're actually able to really play the sport of tennis the way we see it. So back to soccer. So they start out with soccer. They're not playing on a massive 100+ yard field. They're probably playing on a, I don't know, 20 to
Reasonably
40
sized.
yard field. I mean, my son started out playing actually in a gym. So it was a super small. He played on a basketball court. It was a winter sport. Played soccer on a basketball gym floor. So that was a super small space for what soccer is. And so they're used to seeing that modified space for that age kid. So it doesn't really freak them out when they walk on a court and see a bunch of nets up sideways when we're playing. But one of the first things we'll do is just have them go to each side of the net and try to toss the ball back and forth to each other. If that's too difficult, we'll have them just simply toss the ball up in the air to themselves, right? Before that even starts, if it's a super early stage group, you might have them do more. They're not really tennis skills. They're more like just general athletic skills. Like I bring a lot of rings on the court and they look like hula hoops, but they're specific for training. They're not just the hula hoop you buy at, at sporting goods store or whatever. So they're specific to actually training for sports. And I put it on the ground, have them just simply hop in the ring and hop out of the ring. And that's usually a challenge for a 5 or 6 year old if they've never done it before. Now some are really good at it. And so we'll do things like that are more physical skills than they are necessarily tennis specific skills, but we do spend a lot of time on the act of catching a ball because that's the basis for playing the game of playing a sport like tennis.
That sends me to an example, and I know you're usually going to be the example guy in this conversation, but it makes me think of one of the kids. He was a 5-year-old, but fairly uncoordinated naturally. So he didn't have natural coordination. So we were working on it and we had him doing froggy jumps through the ladder and really struggled with it. It just, do you think, okay, just 2 feet, hop through the ladder. And it took him a few weeks of doing it. And I remember eventually that parent pulled him out of the class because it didn't seem like tennis. He was, and maybe it was just, hey, my kid's not ready for tennis yet because the coordination level wasn't there. But there were so many things, using this one kid as an example, so many things that he needed before letting a ball bounce and hitting it with a racket was even going to be an option.
I remember years ago when I was working at Druid Hills and I would have a guy come up, a member, and usually it was a member, it was usually a parent that typically was a father, and he played a lot of golf, and then his kid wanted to get into tennis, and the first thing they would say to me is, "I just want him to learn the strokes," because in golf you probably learn the strokes, right? You got to learn how to hit a golf ball, whatever. So tennis is a lot different because, and I always use this example with golfers because they want to think country clubs are golf and tennis, like they should be the same, but the sports should be taught the same, but the sports are completely different. Golf, you hit a ball and it doesn't come back, you go get it. I said, imagine if I play golf, you play golf, I stand on the fairway, and every time you hit the ball, I pick it up and throw it back to you. Like that would be a completely different sport than what you're used to seeing traditional golf being. But then somehow when in tennis, we try to traditionally follow that same model and just teach the strokes. But the strokes mean nothing because if the kid can't actually react to the ball, other than it being dropped out of my hand or gently tossed with my racket, they're not really playing tennis. And so what we see traditionally is the rackets are in the kids' hands, they're in a line, and they're hitting a ball. And that's it. And our program is totally different. Our program is about teaching to be an athlete, teach you how to move, teach you how to play catch how to catch a ball, how to toss a ball, how to throw a ball, and then teach you how to rally. And if you learn how to actually, it doesn't matter if it's a small space, big space, but if you can actually rally a ball back and forth, you're starting to play tennis, and then you'll buy in to all the technical things that come later. You know, hitting with topspin, having a loop on your stroke, loading your leg, all that stuff that coaches like to dive into. You can do that once the kid has a sense of competence and confidence in playing the sport and they can actually rally. Because that's what tennis is about. Tennis is rallying. That's all it is. It's the same as ping pong. It's the same as pickleball. It's rallying the ball back and forth over a net. That's what tennis is. And if you get the kids confident doing that, then they're going to be willing to move on and try the more, shall I say, like more advanced things of the sport. And I think a lot of times we kind of get the cart before the horse. And, one of the great quotes of one of my colleagues I use all the time is, for coaches at least, we need to have an advanced understanding of the basics, not a basic understanding of the advanced. And the better you get the fundamentals down, the more players you're going to have in the long run, that actually can play the game with some success.
Advanced understanding of the basics, not a basic understanding of the advanced. I like that a lot. I've had parents come to me and say, well, my kid's shot is too loopy right now. And I said, your kid can barely walk. What are you're worried about topspin? Like, you know what? Let's walk through all the things that you need to be doing. You want your kid to be able to get to that next step. Okay, I'm going to give you about 3 to 4 things that we would suggest you doing at home with your child and playing catch. I don't care if it's with a tennis ball, a football, a stuffed animal, as evidently the Hestley kids grew up playing catch with. So I don't care, but then I'm going to send the parent home and say, you're not doing your job. If you're coming to me, your kid can hardly walk and chew gum at the same time, and you're trying to figure out where their topspin is. Said it's not here yet, and it can't because your child's also playing what, 1 or 2 days, 1 day a week, maybe something like that. If we're lucky, 2, and that's also not enough. We'll have to put that into another conversation as well. But it makes me think of the example of just getting the kids to understand sport. And I go back to what you said earlier. They're new to sport. They're new to the spatial awareness of tracking a moving object. Now, they figured out how to not bump into walls. That's good. But especially if they're toddlers and they're really young, their heads are still too big for their bodies and they're kind of going to fall over on their own. But if the ball goes up and their head goes back, they're falling backwards. They have no choice. And I remember a game we used to call 500 as a kid, and it was
I remember that game.
Yeah, it was a football, and
a
kid would throw it. He'd say 200, and we'd all go smash into each other and try to catch the ball. And it was a very masculine kind of game because you had to bump into everybody, and you try to catch the ball, but it wasn't about catching the ball. It was about tracking the thing and being where you need to be. As an outfielder in baseball learns to go be where the ball is going to be, as just playing catch with your kids at home. We have a game here. I say here. We have a game we play a lot with the younger kids we call Skyrocket. And I basically just fire the ball as high as I can, and it's got to bounce. And depending on what level it is, they've either got to nuke a forehand for a winner, they've got to try to hit the ball before it bounces too many times, or they're not even using a racket and they just got to try to catch the ball. So we can use those concepts to be able to help the kids understand this is way more than just when does my kid start with topspin. And Ben, so you've got you talked about the hula hoop like rings, and we've got all those ideas that we say, okay, these are the kids learning to be athletes. And that's the next step where we say, okay, my 3-year-old's got to figure out how to swing a racket without hitting himself with it. First of all, to stand there and swing a racket. My 7-year-old then has to figure out how to let it bounce and hit it and then come back to the middle and know it's coming back. My 10-year-old might be thinking, okay, I got to be able to serve and then get ready for the next. So there's always these progressions. Is that forever? Is that why these guys do so much off-court training even as professionals?
Yeah. I mean, it's always a progression, right? It's always, you're always progressing no matter the level of athlete that you become, right? I came across on social media this morning, as a matter of fact, a conversation. I don't know when it was aired, but I just popped up. I was, oh, this is cool. I'll read this. It's a conversation between Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, and they're talking about Kobe Bryant. I was like, this has got to be awesome, and it was awesome. And they were talking about they got a chance. Both of them, or sorry, Belichick was telling Saban how he met, or Saban was telling Belichick. I can't remember exactly what it was, but anyways, they were talking about Kobe and what made Kobe so great was as he aged, he had to change his game. And as people, because not only did he get older, you know, and you got to argue he wasn't as age has age has its barriers, right? So he's not the spring chicken he was at 18, 20. Now he's 30, 35. His physical limitations have taken on. He's having to change his game. Plus Kobe is Kobe now, not just this 18-year-old kid. They know who he is, and they're guarding him different. Coaches are setting up defenses specifically to keep Kobe from scoring or even getting the ball a lot of times. And so he's telling Saban and Belichick how he had to change his game as he got older. He had to learn he specifically talks in the interview about having to learn how to play in smaller spaces because they were targeting him more and things like that. And so, and he's a guy, if you follow Kobe, he is somebody who's super fundamental. Like this guy will go out and he'll do a simple layup for 10, 15 minutes, right? And you're expecting this guy to do the most like unbelievable advanced drills and basic drills. And so for him, as he got older, he had to change his game. So to your point, yes, as we progress as athletes, the challenges do get more, or we do have more challenges, and therefore we have to continue to progress and to change and to alter. And that's part of that. That's where you see the most successful people in any sport. That's probably what they've done is they've had to change something, had to alter something, had to progress in some way.
Yeah, and so taking that back, so that's at the top of the level, and we'll bring it back down to the very beginning. So Ben, tell me as a parent, my child is just looking at getting into sports, and where do I start? So aside, maybe not even ready for the first baseball class or first basketball group lesson practice, right? And he's not quite there yet, or maybe it's just soccer. And I asked a professional soccer coach the other day, a coach of professional soccer players, soccer teams, and when can my kid start playing? He says, as long as he can walk well. And I thought, that's a great minimum for soccer. Now, other sports, that's not the minimum, but soccer is a great place to start. Do you have a great starting point, which will be our ending point today? But to bring it all back to at the end, where do I start with my kid?
I think you have to start at home and you have to start building their physical skills. And a quick example, I was running a baseball camp recently and I'm walking around. We got tons of coaches. We're in a bunch of stations. And I walk over and I say, "Hey, coach," talking to another coach. He's running a catching station. They're not for catchers, but they're like 7, 8-year-old kids, or they're learning how to catch, right? Or they're practicing catching with their glove. And he says, "Man, they can't catch." I said, "Put the gloves down." He's like, "Well, why? They have to catch with their gloves." I said, "Well," "we're not playing a game. It's just a drill. Like, put the gloves down." So he has them all put their gloves down. And then they're tossing it too. I said, "Have them toss to each other. Like, don't toss. Don't put them on, like, toss to each other." Because I like the kids tossing to each other as long as it's controlled somewhat, because the kid will organically give a different toss. They can't toss the ball the same way. They'll organically give a different toss, which goes back in the tracking skills of making kids better athletes, because they're having to adjust to the variable of what they're getting. But anyway, as soon as they put the gloves down, the drill all of a sudden goes really well, because I said, you don't the glove's an obstacle that they can't, they're not good enough to use yet. So put the glove down, have them actually catch with their hands. They're going to find a lot more success, and we can go back to the glove later. And I think a lot of times that's what happens is we worry about the skills of playing the sport and not the base athletic skills or physical skills required to really play any sport. I mean, if you want to play baseball and you can't catch a teddy bear, that's going to be a really, really tough experience. Okay. And you mentioned my kids earlier. You've seen that video I did. It's on my website, but we really do that. I wasn't playing around. Okay. My daughter had a Care Bear, stuffy bear, and that's what we did. Pillows. We toss catch pillows. Because if it hits them in the face, it doesn't hurt. Right. That's the other thing. Right. The last thing you want to do is take a kid out, your son out in the backyard and play baseball, and you throw a hard 5-ounce baseball and hits him square in the face. Like that athletic career is going to end really quick. I can tell you. Okay. So you have to use things that are going to give them confidence and then build on that. That's what it's all about. Like, let's start with something real simple, real easy that Johnny can do or Susie can do, and then let's build upon that. But I do tell parents, you have to practice at home. I don't care. It's 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I mean, when my son and daughter were catching the teddy bears, it wasn't a 30-minute lesson. It was like, hey, catch this. Boom, flip it to him. Okay, I got it. Yeah. Oh, let's do that again. That was super fun. Okay, now you do that 3 or 4 times. Okay, now I'm gonna make you go like move side. I'm gonna throw it over here and you run and catch it. Okay, there you go. Oh, catch. Oh, great. That's good. Yeah. And you can do that at home, and it takes 3, 4, 5 minutes, not long at all. And if the kid has success, they'll get super excited and they'll want you to do more, and they innately want more challenge. And so I think that's key is being an athlete. It starts at home. Same way a kid's behavior usually starts at home. A kid's athleticism has to start at home.
There's your target. I like it. Ben Hestley, Bull Shark Sports. This has been Youth Sports Talk. We will see you again next week. Thanks so much. Have a great week, Ben.
Yeah.